Glenn, thank you for that live report. And our team coverage continues with Western Mass News reporter Kristen Burnell. She joins us tonight live with more on how the rainfall has led to more sewage and stormwater filling local area rivers. Kristen.
Chris, over the weekend, heavy rains caused 9 million gallons of both sewage and stormwater to be released in Springfield area rivers, including right here at the Connecticut River.
I think it's absolutely disgusting. People should be upset.
People in Western Mass sharing their reaction after hearing 9 million gallons of combined stormwater and sewage was released into the Connecticut and Mill rivers after heavy rains this weekend.
We should do something about this for sure.
Dawn Martin tells Western Mass News she used to swim in the Connecticut River, but that won't be the case anymore.
Never again. I won't.
The Springfield Water and Sewer Commission tells us this impacts people in Agawam, Longmeadow, Springfield, and West Springfield. The communications director saying in a statement in part, quote, "Combined sewer overflows, also known as CSOs, occur whenever there is substantial rainfall, especially heavy thunderstorms. CSOs have occurred since the sewer system was built in the late 1800s. CSOs are due to the presence of legacy sewer systems that rely on combined pipes that carry both wastewater and stormwater. The commission currently is completing the $137 million York Street pump station that will increase the pumping capacity from city sewer pipes to the wastewater treatment plant. This project is expected to reduce CSOs by approximately 100 million gallons in a typical year. When the project is completed later this summer, it is expected that CSO volume into the Connecticut River in a typical year will be reduced by approximately 50% from when we first started CSO reduction efforts in the 1990s. On a state level, Senator John Vilas tells us this is an ongoing issue that needs to be fixed, and the investment into infrastructure is important.
That a lot goes into, right, producing a final water product that's healthy, that's clean, and that there are these unanticipated challenges. So really with something like this, I think it just underscores the importance constantly of infrastructure. It just reinforces that when we spend these big dollar projects to preserve and enhance, but really to preserve the infrastructure that we have, it's to prevent stuff like this.
The Springfield Water and Sewer Commission is encouraging people to not go into the Connecticut River in the next 24 hours. Reporting live in Springfield, Kristen Burnell, Western Mass News.